My husband was asleep beside me. His phone was on the nightstand. I was just going to turn off the alarm. Then I saw a folder I had never seen before. Hidden, locked, no label. My hands were shaking before I even opened it. What was inside made me sit on the bathroom floor and cry for an hour. Not because of what I feared. Because of something I never expected in my entire life. If this story makes your heart stop, please like this video and subscribe to her words. What I found in that folder changed every single thing I believed about my marriage. My name is Sophie Turner. I am 34 years old and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I work as a pediatric nurse at a children's hospital downtown. I have been doing that job for 9 years and I love it with everything I have. Taking care of children who are scared and in pain and making them feel safe is the kind of work that reminds you every single day what actually matters in life. I have been married to Jake Turner for 8 years. We met when I was 25 years old at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. Jake walked in late, sat down across from me, apologized to the whole table for being held up at work, and then spent the next 3 hours making everyone at that table laugh. I fell for him completely that night. Jake is 36 years old and works as a senior architect at a firm in downtown Nashville. He is talented and driven and genuinely good at what he does. He designed the renovation of our entire house himself, every detail, every room. He put that much care into everything he touched. Or at least I thought he did. We do not have children yet. We talked about it seriously for the last 2 years. We were close to making that decision. I thought we were building towards something. A family, a future. The next chapter of everything we had been working toward together. I had no idea there was a chapter he had been writing without me. Our marriage was not perfect. I want to be honest about that because I think pretending otherwise would be unfair to everyone listening. The last 2 years had been harder than the years before. Jake was working longer hours. A big commercial project his firm had taken on was demanding more of his time than either of us had anticipated. We argued sometimes about the balance. About feeling like I was further down his priority list than I used to be. But I never doubted him. Not once. I trusted Jake completely. With everything. With my whole heart. That trust was the foundation of everything I thought we were. It was a Wednesday night about 3 weeks ago. I had worked a long shift at the hospital, 12 hours on my feet. 2 of my youngest patients had difficult nights, and I had stayed past my shift to make sure they were settled before I left. I came home exhausted in a way that goes deeper than just being tired. Jake was already asleep when I got home. The bedroom was dark and quiet. I got ready for bed as quietly as I could and slid in beside him. I set my alarm on my phone and put it on my nightstand. At 2:15 in the morning, something woke me. Not a sound exactly. Just that sudden awareness of being awake that happens sometimes in the middle of the night. I reached for my phone to check the time. I picked up Jake's phone by mistake. The screen lit up in the dark. I was going to put it straight back down. I genuinely was. I had never gone through Jake's phone in 8 years of marriage. Not once. I had no reason to and no desire to. That was not the kind of marriage we had. But the screen stayed lit just long enough, and I saw it. In the bottom corner of his home screen, tucked behind a folder of work apps, was another folder. Small, no label, no emoji, just a plain gray square that did not match anything else on his phone. Something about it made my heart rate change immediately. I do not know how to explain that feeling properly. It was not logical. I had not seen anything suspicious. Jake had not been acting differently. There was no reason in the world for my heart to start going faster just from seeing a plain gray folder on my husband's phone. But it did. I looked over at Jake. He was completely still, breathing slowly, deep asleep. I looked back at the phone. I pressed the folder. It asked for a passcode. Jake and I had always known each other's passcodes. Complete transparency had always been something we both valued. I typed in his 4-digit code. It opened. The first thing I saw was photos. Dozens and dozens of photos organized into subfolders. I opened the first one. It was full of screenshots of conversations. Text, messages, Long, detailed personal messages between Jake and a woman I did not recognize. I scrolled slowly. My brain was trying to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. The messages were intimate. Not work-related, not friendly. Intimate in a way that made my chest feel like something was collapsing inside it. I looked at the name. At the top of the screenshots, her name was Lauren. I did not know a Lauren. Jake had never mentioned a Lauren. Not once in 8 years. I opened the next subfolder. Photos of Lauren. Dozens of them, some taken outdoors. Some indoors in places I did not recognize. Some that I could not look at for more than a second before I had to look away. I sat up slowly in the bed. My hands were shaking badly now. I could feel my whole body responding to what I was seeing before my mind had fully caught up. I got up as carefully as I could and walked to the bathroom. I closed the door quietly behind me. I sat down on the cold tile floor with Jake's phone in my hands and I kept scrolling. The further I went, the worse it got. There were receipts. Hotel receipts saved as screenshots. Dates going back 14 months. 14 months. Over a year. Of carefully saved evidence of a life Jake had been living completely parallel to ours. There were voice notes. I put one earbud in with shaking hands and pressed play on the most recent one. Jake's voice filled my ear. Warm and easy and intimate. Saying things to Lauren that he used to say to me. I pressed stop. I sat on that bathroom floor and I cried in the way that you cry when something inside you breaks that you know is never going to go back together the same way again. Completely silent. Just tears running down my face in the dark. I do not know how long I sat there. At some point I stopped crying. Not because I felt better, but because something shifted. Something went very quiet and very cold and very clear inside me. I was not going to fall apart on that bathroom floor. I was going to be smart. I opened Jake's phone again, and I started from the beginning. This time I was not just scrolling. I was documenting every screenshot, every date, every hotel receipt, every voice note file name. I took photos of the screen with my own phone methodically and carefully. By the time I was done, I had documented 14 months of evidence. I stood up from that bathroom floor. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment. Then I walked back into the bedroom and got back into bed beside my husband. Jake was still asleep. I lay there in the dark beside him with my eyes open and my mind running, and I thought about one thing. I thought about Amy, my best friend Amy. Chun had gone through a divorce 3 years ago. She had told me once about the attorney who handled everything for her. She said if you ever need the best person in Nashville, call Robert Mills. She said he does not lose. I reached for my own phone. I opened my notes app. I typed 3 words. Call Robert Mills. Then I put my phone down and lay completely still, beside my husband while he slept. What I did over the next 7 days before Jake had any idea I knew anything, and what Robert Mills helped me put together in that time, is something Jake never saw coming in his entire life. I did not sleep for the rest of that night. I lay beside Jake until 6 in the morning when his alarm went off. I watched him reach over and silence it. I watched him stretch and sit up and run his hand through his hair the way he did every single morning for 8 years. He looked over at me and smiled. He said, "Good morning, Soph." I said, "Good morning" back. He had no idea. And I needed to keep it that way. The next morning after Jake left for work, I called Amy. Amy Chun had been my best friend since nursing school. She had seen me through everything. Every hard shift. Every difficult season. She was the kind of person who answered on the first ring no matter what time it was. She answered on the first ring. I told her everything in one long breath. The phone. The folder. Lauren. 14 months of hotel receipts and voice notes and photos I could not unsee. Amy was completely silent for a moment. Then she said, "Sophie, listen to me very carefully. Do not say one word to Jake. Not yet. Call Robert Mills today. Right now. Before you do anything else." I told her I had already written his name in my notes at 2 in the morning. She said, "That is my girl." I called Robert Mills at 9 that morning. His assistant put me through within 10 minutes. Robert had a calm, steady voice that immediately made me feel like I was in capable hands. I told him the situation. I told him about the folder. I told him I had documented everything on my own phone. Robert said I had done exactly the right thing. He said we needed to meet in person that same day. He said I should not change my behavior toward Jake in any way. No confrontation, no coldness. No difference whatsoever in my daily routine. He said the next 7 days were the most important 7 days of this entire process. I wore my most normal face for 7 days. I came home from work and made dinner. I watched television beside Jake on the couch. I answered his text during the day with the same warmth I always had. I kissed him goodbye every morning. Every single day felt like performing in a play where only I knew the real story. Every single night I lay beside him and thought about Lauren. Robert Mills worked fast. Within 4 days, he had used the documentation I provided to build a complete picture of Jake's financial activity over the past 14 months. Hotel bookings made on our joint credit card disguised as client entertainment expenses. Cash withdrawals. Every week that had no explanation. 2 charges to a jewelry store that I had never seen any jewelry from. 14 months. Thousands of dollars of our money spent on another woman. Robert said the evidence was overwhelming. He said the financial fraud angle alone gave us an extremely strong position in the divorce proceedings. On day 7, Robert was ready. Jake came home from work on a Friday evening. He walked through the front door, loosening his tie, talking about a project deadline. He dropped his keys on the counter the way he always did and opened the refrigerator, asking what we had for dinner. He turned around and saw Robert Mills sitting at our kitchen table. And he saw me standing beside Robert with my hands completely still and my face completely calm. Jake froze. He looked at Robert, then at me, then back at Robert. He said, "Sophie, what is this?" I told him Robert was my attorney. Then I told him very quietly that I knew about Lauren. Jake's face went completely white. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. He started talking fast. He said it was not what it looked like. He said Lauren meant nothing. He said we could work through it. He said 8 years meant something. I let him talk. When he finally stopped, I said one thing. I told him that 8 years was exactly why I had spent the last 7 days being very careful about how I did this. Then I nodded to Robert. Robert slid the divorce papers across the kitchen table. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I received the house. I received half of all our shared assets plus financial compensation for the 14 months of marital funds Jake had spent on Lauren. Robert did not lose. Amy had been right about that. Jake moved out within 2 weeks of being served. I heard through mutual friends that things with Lauren did not last beyond the divorce being filed. She apparently had no idea Jake was married. I felt something for Lauren in that moment that surprised me. Not anger, something closer to understanding. She had been lied to just as completely as I had. Just from a different direction. Jake tried calling me many times in the months after. I let every call go to voicemail. There was nothing he could say that Robert had not already handled better. I am still in Nashville. Still at the Children's Hospital. Still doing the work. That reminds me every day what actually matters. Last month, one of my youngest patients grabbed my hand before a procedure and told me I had kind eyes. I held his hand through the whole thing and thought about how grateful I was to be exactly where I was. Not in a marriage built on lies. Not lying awake beside someone who was somewhere else entirely, even when he was right next to me. Just here. Present. Doing something real. Amy came over the weekend after the divorce was finalized and we sat on my back porch until midnight talking about everything and nothing. At one point she looked at me and said, "You seem lighter, Sophie." I told her I was. She raised her glass and said, "To finding things by accident." I laughed and raised mine back. Because she was right. I found that folder by accident. And it was the most important accident of my entire life. If this story gave you strength today, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to her. Words for more real stories about real women who found their way through the hardest moments of their lives. Leave a comment and tell me your story. This is her words, and your story always matters here.